Yo, 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 yo. Hey guys, this is Mr. G coming at you with a video on multiplying and dividing fractions. So make sure you've already watched part one. If you haven't done so already, please go back and do so. That's about decimals. And we're going to get into fractions. So let's get it. All right. Now, first key term we have is factor here. A number that is multiplied by another number to get a product. So factor, because we need to find common factors when we're multiplying or dividing fractions. That makes our life a lot easier, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But common factors are very, very useful and helpful. Now, when multiplying fractions or dividing fractions, the rules for multiplying positive and negative integers still apply. So it's still the same thing for fractions. So just so you know, this is a little chart that talks about quotients and products of our rational numbers. So just a little reminder, positive times a positive is always positive. Negative times a negative, also always positive. Okay. Negative times a positive or positive times a negative when we multiply different signs is a negative. So when we multiply fractions, first thing is we always want to check. So step one is to check to see if we can cross simplify. Okay, we can't always cross simplify, but sometimes we can. Okay, so for here I have negative 3 times 2 over 5. Negative 3 isn't a fraction, but I can write it as a fraction because it's really negative 3 over 1. So I want to see if I can cross simplify first before I do anything. Now what I mean by cross simplify is we are looking at these fractions, looking at the numerator and the denominator of separate fractions. So 3 and 5, and I'm seeing, do they have any common factor that I can simplify them by? So I'm looking at it, if this was a fraction 3/5, can I simplify the fraction 3/5? Do they have any common factors? And the answer is no, they don't. So I cannot simplify those. Then I would look at 2 and 1. Can I simplify 2 over 1? And no, I cannot. That is also simplified. So I actually can't cross simplify this fraction at all. These fractions at all. I cannot cross simplify this multiplication problem. So I'm done with step one. Step two, multiply straight across. Or be more specific, instead of saying multiply straight across, you could say multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators. I say straight across because I multiply the top, multiply the bottom. 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times 5 is 5. And I'm done. Because I couldn't cross simplify, I'm not going to be able to simplify in the very end. I always check to make sure I simplify. I'll put simplify again for step 3. Always check to make sure that you can simplify, but you won't always be able. You won't always be able to, especially if you did your cross simplifying in the beginning. And I know my answer has to be negative because a negative times a positive is negative, so I'm done. Negative 6 over 5. So when we multiply fractions, we try to cross simplify, and then we just multiply the top and the bottom, and then we're done. All right, let's look at this bottom one down here. So right away, I have a negative times a positive is negative. So I got that part done. Now, instead of multiplying straight across, I'm going to try to cross simplify first. So if I look at 1 and 7 right here, 1 and 7 do not, if I have a 1, you can't simplify 1 anymore. That's always the lowest common factor. So cannot simplify 1. If I look at 3 and 6 though, and I'll pull this off to the side just to help to see better. 6 over 3, the common factor these both share is I can divide both of these numbers by 3. That is a common factor between 6 and 3. And that's going to leave me with 2 over 1. So 6 over 3, when I say cross simplify, that becomes 2, that becomes 1. By doing this simplification, it means I'm probably not going to have to simplify in the very end. Okay, and it makes my multiplication a little bit easier because now I'm just doing 1 times 2 because now I multiply across with my new values. This 6 became a 2 and this 3 became a 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 7 is 7. So my answer is negative 2/7, and I cannot simplify 2 over 7. So I am done. Okay. You always have to simplify. Never do you need to ask me, Mr. G, do I have to simplify my fraction? The answer will always be yes. Okay. Try this third one over here on your own. I know there's 3 fractions, but see if you can do it on your own. Pause the video. Just try it. See how you do. Okay. So with 3 fractions, we still can cross simplify, but the cool part is you can cross simplify any of these. So when I'm looking, if I look right away between 4/7 and 3/5, 4 and 5 I cannot simplify because 4 and 5 do not have any common factors. The only factors of 5 are 5 and 1, and I can't divide 4 by 5. 3 and 7, same thing. They're both prime numbers, so I can't simplify those. But if I go over here, if I look at these 2 values right here, the 2 3s, I can simplify because they're the same value. I can divide these both by 3 because 3 divided by 3 is 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so these both become 1. So that makes it a little bit easier. Multiplying by 1 is very easy. Another thing is you can even cross multiply 4/7 with 7 over 1. These 7s also become 1 because 7 and 7 make 1. I'm sorry, 7 divided by 7 is 1. 7 divided by 7 is 1. These have a common factor of 7. So the 3s cancel out to make 1. The 7s cancel out to make 1. So really, what I have left is this is just 4 over 1, negative 4 over 1. This is, I'm going to erase this because you should have it by now. The next one is, so I have negative 4 over 1. This one is negative 1 over 5. And this last fraction is 1 over 1. So I'm really just multiplying 4 times 1 times 1, which is 4. 1 times 5 times 1, which is 5, which is 4/5. And I'm done. I don't have to simplify because I did all my simplifying earlier with really small numbers. Now, had I not cross-simplified, so let's say I didn't cross-simplify at all, and I decide, you know what, I'm just going to multiply straight across. Well, 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 7 is 84. 7 times 5 is 35. 35 times 3 is 105. I believe, right? Yeah, 7 times 5 is 35. 35, yeah, 105. So 84 over 105, I'd have to simplify this to get 4/5. This is not a very easy number to simplify. The common factor they have is 21. It's hard to see that, though. Now, you could do that. They also have common factors of 3 and 7, so I could divide by 3 and 7, but again, it's hard to see that. But seeing that 3 and 3 have a common factor is really easy. Seeing that 7 and 7 have a common factor is also really easy. So that's why we cross-simplify in the beginning to make our life a little bit easier in the end. Now I have to look at my positives and negatives, and I have to look to see I have a negative times a negative, makes a positive, but I also have a positive times a negative, which is going to give me a final answer of negative 4/5. So make sure to be careful with those positives and those negatives. Now let's take a look at dividing fractions. And dividing fractions is very similar to multiplying fractions. So for dividing fractions, the first thing we do, step 1, is to keep the first fraction, change to multiplication, and flip the second fraction. So we're going to keep the first fraction, change the multiplication, and flip the second fraction. Okay, so here's what I mean by that. This is division. This is super confusing. This is called a complex fraction. So it looks confusing, but we know fractions are just division problems. So this is 7/10 divided by negative 1/5. So this is really 7/10 divided by negative 1/5. So that's a different way that we can rewrite this. Now, I have 7/10 divided by negative 1/5. Now that I wrote it as the division that we kind of like to look at, it makes it a little bit easier for us to see. I'm going to follow the step of keep, change, flip, and change it to multiplication. So what I mean by that is this is the keep. I'm going to keep my first fraction as 7/10. I'm going to change my division to multiplication, and I'm going to flip the second fraction to negative 5 over 1. What this is called is multiply by the reciprocal. I'm multiplying by the reciprocal. The reciprocal is a fraction flipped around. Now, for step 2 of dividing fractions, I'm going to follow my rules of multiplication. Okay? I'm going to follow my rules for multiplying. So this is where now, once we've already done the keep, change, flip, we've done everything that we need to do for the division part. Now I got the problem that we were just working on. So I can now see, can I cross simplify these with 10 and 5? Which I can. They can divide them both by 5 to make this 1 and to make this 2. 7 times 1 is 7. 2 times 1 is 2. Positive times a negative is negative. So I have negative 7 over 2. And yes, you can leave your answer as improper. That's okay. We do not have to change it to a mixed number. Do not have to change it to a mixed number. So this is good. That's my final answer. I'm all done. So go ahead, pause the video, try this one on your own, see how you do. Don't forget to do keep, change, flip, and then see if you did it correctly. Okay, so first I'm going to rewrite it so that it's a little bit easier for me to look at. So I have negative 5/8 divided by negative 6/7. Negative divided by negative is positive, so I really don't even need to worry about that because I know my answer is positive. I'm going to keep, change, flip. So this is still going to be negative 5/8 times negative 7/6. So I flipped my second fraction, and now I get to cross simplify and then multiply. 8 and 7 do not have any common factors. 5 and 6 do not have any common factors. So now I get to multiply straight across. 5 times 7, 35. 8 times 6 is 48, and it's positive like we already said, and I'm done. And I cannot simplify that anymore because I couldn't cross simplify before. And that's it. So for things to remember, I would jot down some of the rules that we mentioned for at least dividing. Make sure you jot down keep, change, flip. And then don't forget to try out the independent practice. But the big thing, you guys, is if you cross simplify, it'll help you out a lot. For dividing fractions, though, don't cross simplify before you do keep, change, flip. So like you could have, if you cross simplified, you would have simplified this 6 and this 8, but that doesn't work with division. We have to change it to multiplication and flip it first, and then we get to worry about our cross simplifying. And that's it. I hope this video helped. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. Gradius out.